midnight heavens burning through ethereal deeps afar, once I watched with restless yearning an alluring aureate star, every eye aloft returning, gleaming nigh the Arctic car. Mystic waves of beauty blended with the gorgeous golden rays, fantasies of bliss descended in a mirrored Elysian haze, and in lyre-born chords extended harmonies of Lydian lays. There, thought I, lie scenes of pleasure where the free and blessed dwell, and each moment bears a treasure freighted with a lotus spell, and there floats a liquid measure from the lute of Israfel. There, I told myself, were shining worlds of happiness unknown, and peace and innocence entwining by the crowned virtue's throne. Men of light, their thoughts refining purer, fairer than our own. Thus I mused, when o'er the vision crept a red, delirious change. Hope dissolving to derision, beauty to distortion strange, hymnic chords in weird collision, spectral sights in endless range. Crimson burned the star of sadness as behind the beams I peered. All was woe that seemed but gladness ere my gaze with truth was seared. Cacodemons, mired with madness, through the fevered flickering leered. Now I know the fiendish fable that the golden glitter bore. Now I shun the spangled sable that I watched and loved before. But the horror, set and stable, haunts my soul forevermore. It was golden and splendid, that city of light, of vision suspended in deeps of the night, a region of wonder and glory whose temples were marble and white. I remember the season it dawned on my gaze, the mad time of unreason, the brain-numbing days when winter, white-sheeted and ghastly, stalks onward to torture and craze. More lovely than Zion it shone in the sky, when the beams of Orion beclouded my eye, bringing sleep that was filled with dim memories of moments obscure and gone by. Its mansions were stately with carvings made fair, each rising sedately on terraces rare, and the gardens were fragrant and bright with strange miracles blossoming there. The avenues lured me with vistas sublime. Tall arches assured me that once upon a time I had wandered in rapture beneath them and basked in the halcyon clime. On the plazas was standing a sculptured array, long-bearded, commanding, grave men in their day. But one stood dismantled and broken, its bearded face battered away. In that city effulgent, no mortal I saw, but my fancy, indulgent to memory's law, lingered long on the forms in the plazas, and eyed their stone features with awe. I fanned the faint ember that glowed in my mind, and strove to remember the eons beyond, to rove through infinity freely, and visit the past unconfined. Then a horrible warning upon my soul sped, like the ominous morning that rises in red. And in panic, I flew from the knowledge of terrors forgotten and dead. Babels of blocks to the high heavens towering, flames of futility swirling below, poisonous fungi in brick and stone flowering, lanterns that shudder and deathlights that glow. Black monstrous bridges across oily rivers, cobwebs of cable by nameless things spun, catacomb deeps whose dank chaos delivers streams of live fetor that rots in the sun. Color and splendor, disease and decaying, shrieking and ringing and scrambling insane. Rabbles exotic to stranger gods praying, jumbles of odor that stifle the brain. Legions of cats from the alleys nocturnal, howling and lean in the glare of the moon, screaming the future with mouthings infernal, yelling the burden of Pluto's red rune. Tall towers and pyramids ivied and crumbling, bats that swoop low in the weed-cumbered streets, bleak broken bridges or rivers whose rumbling joins with no voice as the thick tide retreats. Belfries that blackly against the moon totter, caverns whose mouths are by mosses effaced, and living to answer the wind and the water, only the lean cats that howl in the waste. There's an ancient, ancient garden that I see sometimes in dreams, where the very Maytime sunlight plays and glows with spectral gleams, where the gaudy tinted blossoms seem to wither into grey, and the crumbling walls and pillars waken thoughts of yesterday. There are vines in nooks and crannies, and there's moss about the pool, and the tangled weedy thicket chokes the arbor dark and cool. In the silent sunken pathways springs an herbage sparse and spare, where the musty scent of dead things dulls the fragrance of the air. There is not a living creature in the lonely space around, and the hedge-encompassed quiet never echoes to a sound. As I walk and wait and listen, I will often seek to find when it was I knew that garden in an age long left behind. I will oft conjure a vision of a day that is no more, as I gaze upon the grey, grey scenes I feel I knew before. Then a sadness settles o'er me, and a tremor seems to start, for I know the flowers are shriveled hopes. The garden is my heart. There is a lake in distant Zan, beyond the wonted haunts of man, where broods alone in a hideous state a spirit dead and desolate, a spirit ancient and unholy, heavy with fearsome melancholy, which from the waters dull and dense draws vapors cursed with pestilence. Around the banks a mire of clay, sprawled things offensive in decay, and curious birds that reach that shore are seen by mortals nevermore. Here shines by day the searing sun, on glassy wastes beheld by none, and here by night pale moonbeams flow into the deeps that yawn below. In nightmares only is it told what scenes beneath those beams unfold, what scenes too old for human sight lie sunken there in endless night. For in those depths there only pace the shadows of a voiceless race. One midnight, redolent of ill, I saw that lake, asleep and still, while in the lurid sky there rode a gibbous moon that glowed and glowed. I saw the stretching marshy shore and the foul things those marshes bore. Lizards and snakes convulsed and dying, ravens and vampires putrefying. All these, and hovering o'er the dead, narcophagi that on them fed. And as the dreadful moon climbed high, frightening the stars from out the sky, I saw the lake's dull water glow, till sunken things appeared below. There shone unnumbered fathoms down the towers of a forgotten town, the tarnished domes and mossy walls, weed-tangled spires and empty halls, deserted fanes and vaults of dread, and streets of gold uncoveted. These I beheld, and saw beside a horde of shapeless shadows glide, a noxious horde which to my glance seemed moving in a hideous dance round slimy sepulchres that lay beside a never-travelled way. Straight from those tombs a heaving rose that vexed the water's dull repose, while lethal shades of upper space howled at the moon's sardonic face. Then sank the lake within its bed, sucked down to caverns of the dead, till from the reeking, new-stripped earth curled fetid fumes of noisome birth. Above the city, nigh uncovered, the monstrous dancing shadows hovered, when, lo, there oped with sudden stir the portal of each sepulchre. No ear may learn, no tongue may tell what nameless horror then befell. I see that lake, that moon a-grin, that city, and the things within. Waking, I pray that on that shore the nightmare lake may sink no more. O'er the midnight moorlands crying, through the cypress forest sighing, in the night wind madly flying, hellish forms with streaming hair. In the barren branches creaking, by the stagnant swamp pools speaking, past the shore cliffs ever shrieking, damned demons of despair. Once I think I half remember, ere the grey skies of November quenched my youth's aspiring ember, lived there such a thing as bliss. Skies that now at dark were beaming, gold and azure, splendid seeming, till I learned it all was dreaming, deadly drowsiness of dis. But the stream of time, swift flowing, brings the torment of half-knowing, dimly rushing, blindly going past the never-trodden lea. And the voyager, repining, sees the wicked death fires shining, hears the wicked petrels whining, as he helpless drifts to sea. Evil wings in the ether beating, vultures at the spirit eating, things unseen forever fleeting, black against the leering sky. Ghastly shades of bygone gladness, clawing fiends of future sadness, mingle in a cloud of madness, ever on the soul to lie. Thus the living lone and sobbing, in the throes of anguish throbbing, with the loathsome furies robbing night and noon of peace and rest. But beyond the groans and grating of abhorrent life is waiting sweet oblivion, culminating all the years of fruitless quest. Through the ghoul-guarded gateways of slumber, past the wan-mooned abysses of night, I have lived o'er my lives without number. I have sounded all things with my sight, and I struggle and shriek ere the daybreak, being driven to madness with fright. I have whirled with the earth at the dawning, when the sky was a vaporous flame. I have seen the dark universe yawning, where the black planets roll without aim, where they roll in their horror unheeded, without knowledge or luster or name. I had drifted o'er seas without ending, under sinister grey clouded skies that many forked lightning is rending, that resound with hysterical cries, with the moans of invisible demons that out of the green waters rise. I have plunged like a deer through the arches of the hoary primordial grove, where the oaks feel the presence that marches and stalks on where no spirit dares to rove. And I flee from a thing that surrounds me and leers through dead branches above. I have stumbled by cave-ridden mountains that rise barren and bleak from the plain. I have drunk of the fog-fetid mountains that ooze down to the marsh and the main. And in hot cursed tarns, I have seen things I care not to gaze on again. I have scanned the vast ivy-clad palace. I have trod its untenanted hall, where the moon writhing up from the valleys shows the tapestried things on the wall, strange figures discordantly woven, which I cannot endure to recall. I have peered from the casement in wonder at the mouldering meadows around, at the many-roofed village laid under the curse of a grave-girdled ground, and from rows of white urn-carven marble I listen intently for sound. I have haunted the tombs of the ages. I have flown on the pinions of fear, where the smoke-belching Erebus rages, where the yokels loom snow-clad and drear, and in realms where the sun of the desert consumes what it never can cheer. I was old when the pharaohs first mounted the jewel-decked throne by the Nile. I was old in those epochs uncounted, when I, and I only, was vile. And man, yet untainted and happy, dwelt in bliss on the far Arctic isle. Oh, great was the sin of my spirit, and great is the reach of its doom. Not the pity of heaven can cheer it, nor can respite be found in the tomb. Down the infinite aeons come beating the wings of unmerciful gloom. Through the ghoul-guarded gateways of slumber, past the wan-mooned abysses of night, I have lived all my lives without number. I have sounded all things with my sight. And I struggle and shriek ere the daybreak, being driven to madness with fright. The steeples are white in the wild moonlight, and the trees have a silver glare. Past the chimneys high, see the vampires fly, and the harpies of upper air that flutter and laugh and stare. For the village dead to the moon outspread never shone in the sunset's gleam, but grew out of the deep that the dead years keep, where the rivers of madness stream down the gulfs to a pit of dream. A chill wind weaves through the rows of sheaves in the meadows that shimmer pale, and come to twine where the headstones shine, and the ghouls of the churchyard wail for harvests that fly and fail. Not a breath of the strange grey gods of change that tore from the past its own can quicken this hour, when a spectral power spreads sleep o'er the cosmic throne and looses the vast unknown. So here again stretch the vale and plain that moons long forgotten saw, and the dead leap gay in the pallid ray, sprung out of the tomb's black maw, to shake all the world with awe. And all the morn shall greet forlorn the ugliness and the past of rows where thick rise the stones and brick, and some day be with the rest, and brood with the shades unblessed. Then wild in the dark let the lemurs bark, and the leprous spires ascend, for new and old alike in the fold of horror and death are penned, for the hounds of time to rend.